Hello friends, welcome to the YouTube channel on learning project management, learning with SV. Today we shall be talking about the heart of what we call as project management. In other words, a 5-lettered word called scope. It is scope which finally decides what's the work that's going to be done and how are we going to get the work done to ensure that we deliver value to business and customers. Per a report and survey conducted by management consulting firms across the globe like Ernst & Young, Deloitte & Touche, KPMG and PwC. Following are some of the results which I would like to mention. It's estimated that annually around $200 billion of money is actually spent across the globe for software development, out of which $50 billion is exclusively spent on fixing the errors that have arisen out of using that software. And what is even more staggering is we annually waste $250 billion in developing features which nobody even thinks of using or which nobody even wants. So if you look at it from a finer perspective, you spend 250 and you get nothing out of 250. The whole thing, it becomes a colossal waste, which eventually comes to the point why poor scope is a poor project management activity. Now, let us understand one thing. Proper defined scope leads to proper planning, and proper planning leads to proper understanding of how much of time you need to apportion for this activity, and proper apportioning of timing becomes the baseline or measurement factor for understanding how much of cost to be apportioned. In other words, scope, cost, schedule, the tripartite constraints of project management come into action here. Now, another common question which we may ask is, if a project is essentially adaptive or what we call as agile, has a scope that is changing, how do we try to curtail too much of scope changes? Perfectly valid question. This is where we get to understand a concept called as a baseline, which we shall be seeing in some time from now. Now, let us understand scope from the finer aspect of execution. We first plan for scope, what we need to deliver. After we plan for scope, we tend to collect the requirements. Let us now try to understand what is the meaning of meaning of the word requirement. What is a requirement? Anything that is a conditional clause imposed by customer or business which has some worth or value and which is definitely time bound is called as a requirement. A requirement is a conditional clause bestowed by the customer which has to deliver some value and which is definitely time bound. This is called as a requirement. Now, after we collect the requirements, this is where we draw the line and we say that this is where we are going to work on. This is the scope. And once we get the scope done, we tend to create a breakdown of the scope. Once we create the breakdown of the scope, we get to the finest element of how much of work each activity will take, how much of time each activity will be required to spend, and how are we going to apportion timing for each of the finer and smaller activities. Trust me, if you are having the measurement from the smallest metric of work, of task, that is a recipe and a guarantee for the project success. A person who does not know, or a project which does not know how the bottom line of the project is performing, is unlikely to succeed at the top level, because it is the aggregate of all the smaller elements of activities which eventually become a larger portion of a project, eventually a program, and then finally a portfolio. So that is how we have planned the scope, collect the requirements, define the scope, and create what we call in project management nomenclature as work breakdown structure. Now, after we have this, we need to validate with the fact whether we have delivered the goods, essentially what a customer wants. Verify the scope. And once a verification of scope happens, customers tend to take more than what we want. We generally have inclination to get some kind of increment over whatever we have delivered. So that is where we tend to have what we call as scope controlling. So plan scope, collect requirements, define scope, create work breakdown structure, verify scope, and control scope. In the subsequent section from now, we will be talking about what we call as a baseline. So I really thank you for your interest, for your time, and for your support in listening to this video session on learning project management with SV. Please do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to this YouTube channel. It really motivates not only me as a presenter, it also gives me the inner energy to deliver more than what is actually needed as a part of the exercise. Once again, I really want to thank you and wish you all the best for your preparation of the Project Management Professional Certification examination. You may want to reach out to me on my mobile or on my email ID, which is there in the homepage of the YouTube channel, and we may want to have a fruitful discussion from then on. Thank you so much. Wish you all a great day ahead.